In this video, we'll discuss how CAD files might not have the detail necessary for our project. We can use the volume builder to easily add detail to our parts without having to send them back or redraw them in a CAD program. We'll also use the volume builder and the volume mesher to add animation to our project. When you get a CAD file, you may be expecting to have all the parts with the detail you need for your project, but that's not always the case. So if I look at our truck, I'll notice that parts are missing and some of the parts don't have the detail that I want. For example, if I clicked on this rim part here, if you remember, we collapsed all those objects into one. So to separate those objects, I can go to Mesh, Conversion, and Polygon Groups to Objects. And that separates them all into single objects again. So I'll click on the rim part. And to center my axis, I'll go to Mesh, Axis Center, and Center Axis 2. And to make this a little easier, I'll copy and paste it into another scene. So I'll click Control-C, and then File, New, and then Control-V to paste. I'll hit my S key to zoom in. And I notice this object has no thickness, and that's because it was a surface model in the CAD program. So to fix this, I'll go to Simulate, and then Cloth and Cloth Surface. And I'll hold my Alt key down to make this a parent of my object. I think it's a little easier to do it that way. And you can also hold your Shift key down to make your new object a child of the object you have selected. But if you didn't want to do it that way, if I hit Control Z here, I could just go to Simulate and then Cloth and then Cloth Surface. I could just drag my object and make it a child of the Cloth Surface object. So now I'll click on Cloth Surface, and I'll change my thickness to -0.5. The negative number puts it to the inside of my object instead of to the outside, and that's what I wanted in this case. Next, I want my object to be centered in the scene, so if I click on Cloth Surface and go to Coordinates, you can see it is at 0, 0, 0, but if I click on the rim part, you can see that it's not centered, so I want to change this to 0, 0, 0. And then I'll hit my S key again and rotate this around. Now I'll draw a rectangle, and I'll scale this down so we can see it. Then I'll click on Rectangle, I'll go to Object, and I'll make the width 6, and I'll make the height 3. I'll turn on Rounding, and I'll crank that up. Then I want to extrude it, so I'll come up here to Extrude. I'll hold my Alt key down to make it the parent, and I'll move this out. Then I'll go to MoGraph. I'll hold my Alt key down and click on Cloner to make it a parent, and I'll change the mode to Radial, and I'll move the radius in to about here, and then I'll change the count to 9. And now I'll add the volume builder, so I'll go to Volume, and I'll hold my Alt key down again and go to Volume Builder to make it the parent. And as you can see, the voxel size is very large, so I'll change it to 0.05. And then I'll drag the cloth surface into the volume builder and click on Volume Builder again. And I want the cloner to be at the top, and then I'll change the mode to Subtract. And now that's exactly what I want, but it looks a little bit rough. So I'll add a smooth layer, and I need to make sure that the smooth layer is at the top, because if it was in the middle here, it would only smooth what's beneath it. So I'll move this all the way up to the top. The next thing I want to do is make this a mesh. I'll go to Volume and hold my Alt key down again to make Volume Mesher the parent. And now you can see we have a mesh here. One more thing that I can do to smooth it, if I go to our deformers, and if I go to the smoothing deformer, I can hold my Shift key down and make this a child of the volume mesher. And that will give us a little more smoothing on our object. Now I want to collapse this all down to a mesh, but the first thing I'll do is go to our display and turn on lines. And I'll zoom in here so you can see this, but the mesh is pretty dense. And one thing we can do is go to our volume mesher and adaptive. I can turn this up. And you can see that reduces our polygons, but it also reduces the detail. So you'll have to play with those settings to get the mesh density and detail that you want. I'm just going to put this to 1. Then I'll zoom back out and I'll right click on volume mesher, current state to object, and then I'll just delete this volume mesher. And I notice that my axis is not centered, so I can go to mesh, axis center, and center axis 2. But if I come down here to position, I can see that it's not at 0, 0, 0. So I'll go over here and turn on enable axis modification, and then I'll change this to 0, 0, 0. And then I'll turn enable axis off. And now I'll copy this and I'll paste it into our other scene. Now I'll go to window and then go back to our other scene. And then I'll click Ctrl V to paste. And now I'll go to tools and arrange objects and transfer. And I'll point to our rim part here. And then I'll just click on the old rim part and delete it. And now we have our new part, and I'll put a material on it. And that's how we can easily add detail to our CAD project. And another way we can use the volume builder is for animation. So I'll go to our other scene, I'll go to window, and then new bumper. And here's our bumper for our vintage truck. And for this project, we're transitioning from the old truck to the new truck. So if I scrub the timeline, you can see the new bumper come in. So for now, I'll hide the old bumper. And we'll just concentrate on the main cylinder of this new bumper. So I'll click on bumper animation, and then I'll come over here and click on viewport solo hierarchy. Now during the transition animation, I want this to look kind of like a Venom symbiote type thing. So I've made a cloner here, and I'll unhide this. And I'll turn off symmetry for now. And if I scrub the timeline, you can kind of see how it grows. So I'll turn off this cloner, and what this is just several sweeps. And I went to the sweep, and I animated the start growth and end growth to make them appear and then disappear at the end. So I'll turn the cloner back on. I also added a twist modifier, and I'll unhide that. And then I copied the original sweeps and just changed the radius on the circle to make them smaller. And this gives us more of a tentacle look. And so we can see this better. I'll turn off our textures. So I'll go to options and then textures. Now this looks okay, but I want it to be all one piece. So I'm going to use the volume builder for this. So I'll go up and click on the twist null. And then I'll hold my Alt key down and go to volume and click on volume builder. And I'll change the voxel size to 1. Then I'll hold my Alt key down again, and I'll go to volume again and click on volume mesher. And if I come down to the voxel range threshold, I can adjust this to get the look that I want. I think that looks good there. I can also animate this over time if I wanted that effect. And I have this on a symmetry, so it'll start from the center of the bumper and grow out. So I'll turn on this symmetry, and now you can see how that will grow out. And if I want to cache the file, I can right click and bake as alembic. And that's a way we can use the volume builder for animation. In this video, we discuss how to detail our CAD models using the volume builder. We also use the volume builder to add animation for the transformation parts of our project.